Random Thoughts. In this video, we are going to read parts of Sir Richard Burton's book, First Steps in East Africa, Exploration of Harar, where he tells us how he handles the crisis that emerged after he realized that there were people in Harar that had identified him to be a spy and not the Arab merchant he was presenting himself to be. Of course, Richard Burton was a spy and he had been sent by the British to Harar to try to collect information that the British were going to use to capture the port of Berbera. But this was a very dangerous mission. And that's because there was no European who was allowed to come to Harar or be allowed to enter Harar. And so him going there, he was basically putting his life in danger. And so before he even enters the gates of Harar, he faces this crisis of that he's being identified. And I told you in the previous video that there were these 3 or 4 individuals who came to meet Gerard Eden, who was the leader of the Gari. And when they come, they meet him having or being in the company of Sir Richard Burton, who of course had introduced himself as an Arab merchant to Eden. And Eden was so much into this conversation with him about building a city or something like that. And so these people come and they tell Eden, look, this guy is not a merchant as he presents himself. This guy is clearly a spy. And Aidan tells them, no, he's my friend. He tries to defend him, of course. But when they leave, they had come to collect cattle. When they leave, Sir Richard Burton knows that he's in danger. And now it is at this point that we come to learn that the people who accompanied him, at least 2 of them, knew who he was. They were not ignorant of his identity. They knew that he was a spy. Kind of like they had information that this guy was not who he presented himself to be, at least to the people he was meeting on the way and to the people of Harar, of course, the emir in particular. So now they have this crisis, and we're going to read how they handle this crisis, because now they know that, or Sir Richard Burton knows that his identity is in question in Harar even before he enters the gates of Harar. But he's now wondering whether he should proceed to go to Harar or he should just turn around and go back. Let's read and see what he says about that. And he says, nothing then remained, dear L. Now, L is this individual he seems to be talking to when he's writing this document. But Père d'Audace, which is a French term, and I decided to go look at the meaning of that term, and it turns out to be a very interesting choice of words. And he says, or it says, Père d'Audace is a French idiom meaning to brazen it out or act with bold confidence, especially when one might be in a difficult situation or to cover up a mistake. So this is exactly where Sir Richard Burton was. He was in trouble. He was trying to figure out how to cover this issue up, or how to fix it, basically. He continues to say, throwing all forethought to the dogs, to rely upon what has made many a small man great, the good star. So he's basically saying at this point, it's luck that is going to save us. Things have gone wrong. He continues to say, I addressed my companions in a set speech, advising mount without delay. So he talks to these people who had accompanied him, and there is a suggestion that maybe they should just mount their horses or their mules and just go back. They suggested a letter to the emir. Some of them suggested that maybe he should write a letter to the emir requesting permission to enter his city. This device was rejected for 2 reasons. So they tell him maybe he should write a letter, send it to him, or asking for permission that he lets us come into his city. But that suggestion is dismissed on 2 grounds. This says, in the first place, had a refusal been returned, our journey was cut short and our labors stultified. So if they sent a letter asking for permission and then the emir says no, of course that's the end of it. They will not proceed any further, and maybe now they are even in danger. He says, secondly, the end of time had whispered that my 2 companions were plotting to prevent the letter reaching its destination. So there was also this concern, and he's told by the end of time, which is an individual he had given that name, that there were these other 2 guys who were planning that if such a letter was going to be written, they were going to prevent it from going to the emir of Harar. So for those two reasons, that suggestion basically was dismissed. He continues, he had charged his own sin upon their shoulders. The Hamal and the Long Gulad were incapable of such treachery. So he says, looks like the end of time is the one who was trying to prevent this letter from going. So him accusing that Long Gulad and Hamal were the ones who were going to stop this letter, these guys did not even think about it, but he was just creating things. That is the end of time, was creating things because he was worried about such a letter being drafted. So that letter was not written. That was a letter that was going to be sent to the Emir of Harar asking for permission to come into the city. But another letter was drafted. He drafted a letter. Now, this was a forgery. He forged a letter, actually. That is Sir Richard Burton. He decided to forge a letter. This is what he said. I then wrote an English letter from the political agent at Aden to the Emir of Harar, proposing to deliver it in person and throw off my disguise. So at this point, he has decided now the option is for me to forge a letter and claim that this letter comes from the political agent of the British, of course, in Aden, Yemen. And I'm going to present this letter myself, and I'm not going to present it as an Arab merchant. No, I'm going to present it as actually somebody who has been sent by the political agent in Yemen, in Aden. So at this point, he decides, I'm going to drop my disguise. Because he sees like that maybe will save them. And in fact, he says, two reasons influenced me adopting this neck or nothing plan. All the races amongst whom my travels lay hold him needering who hides his origins in places of danger. So he says that he had traveled, and everywhere he had traveled, people did not respect you hiding your real identity during times of danger or when you face danger. There was respect when you knew you were in danger, but you did not hide your identity. So he decides that's going to be the thing he's going to do. He's not going to hide his identity. He's going to expose himself, and that maybe is going to work for him or for them. He continues to say, and secondly, my white face had converted me into a Turk, a nation more hated and suspected than any Europeans without our prestige. So in other parts of this book, close to this part actually, as he approaches Harar, people had started looking at him and saying that he was a Turk. Even though he was trying to present himself as an Arab, the people who met him were like, this is a Turk, he's a Turk, he's a Turk. He did not like that. And the reason he did not like that is that the people of Harar, especially the Emir and the leadership, hated the Turks so much. And I had not realized that was the point because reading other historical documents, especially the book Pt2 al-Habasha, it created an impression in my mind that the sultanates that were in that region were very friendly with the Turks. But now here Richard Burton tells us that the Turks were more hated in Harar than the British were. And so when he realized that the people who were meeting were taking him to be a Turk, he decided it was better for me to actually drop my disguise. Before leaving Sagara, I entrusted to the end of time few lines addressed to Lieutenant Herney at Berbera, directing him how to act in case of necessity. So this is the last stop before they reach the gate of Harar, the place called Sagarara. So he decides to write a message that he gives the end of time to take that message to Lieutenant Herney, who was his senior or most likely his companion. Is one of the guys who came with him to the coast of East Africa. So telling him what to do in case there is an emergency, which means in case he's arrested and maybe he's killed. Now, from that point, he travels with the son of Aden, who went by the name Shirwa. But they reach a certain point before they reach the gates of Harar, and Shirwa says he was not going to go further than that. These people feared the Emir of Harar so much, and so at this point Shirwa says, I'm not going to go past here. And then from that point they decide to travel by themselves. So finally they reach the gate of Harar, and this is what he says. Advancing to the gate, Mad Sahid, who was one of the people who accompanied him, accosted Awada, known by his long wand of office, and sent our salams to the Emir, saying that we came from Aden and requested the honor of audience. While he sped upon his errand, we sat at the foot of around Bastion and was scrutinized, derided, and catechized by the curious of both sexes. So they are at the gate. This mad Said talks to the warden and tells him, we are interested to see the emir, and we are from Aden, and we have a message for him, something like that. And then they sit there, and the people are passing by and looking at them and wondering who are these people, why are they here. I think they stood out, that going at least by what he writes. So finally the warden comes back and he tells them they are allowed to go in, and this is what he writes. After waiting half an hour at the gate, we were told by the return warder to pass the threshold, and remounting, guided our mules along the main street, a narrow uphill lane with rocks cropping out from a surface more irregular than parrot pavement. Longulad, who was one of the guys who had accompanied, had given his animal into the hands of our two Badawin. They did not appear till after our audience, when they informed us that the people at the entrance had advised them to escape with the beast, an evil fate having been prepared for the proprietors. So they go into the gate. There were these other guys, and they are told, give these guys your animals. They leave the animals with them, and they go and they don't see them. And they actually did not see them until much later. And the story they got later is that they had been told at the gate that you people just go with the animals. These guys are not coming back. Seems like that's what they were told, because they were told like there were plans made for these guys, meaning maybe these guys are not going to come back, so you are better off just going with the animals. So we are going to see in the next video what happened after this and how Richard Burton handled everything that happened. Those are my random thoughts.